Okay, I'm gonna make sure we can see everybody's chats here.
Okay.
Yeah. So hello and thank you for being here. How are you? How's the weather
I'm good. I'm
there?
good. How are you? It's a bit sunny. It's sunny, but it's not hot. But my kids were like there splashing each other with water because spring.
Yeah, because anything, Jay, after September it's spring.
Yeah,
We don't
yeah.
wanna know any stories.
No, no, they were prepared. I'm like, you guys, you're gonna get some cold, but yeah, no listening.
So where do you stay? Where do you live? Are you in Venda?
No, I actually live in Secunda.
Okay, okay,
Yeah, I live and work over here, so we go home every now and then.
okay. All
Yeah.
right. Okay, so that's why it's not so hot there, I guess.
Secunda is never really like hot. It's
Yeah.
yeah.
No, I get it
When we are
because
here.
yeah,
Uh-huh.
because I get it. That's why now I understand why you're saying it's not so hot. Because as far as I know, home Limpopo is hot. Even when it's raining, it's hot.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Here, even the winter is winter, like it's proper winter. Like when you are in Limpopo, you hardly get a coat, you hardly get anything. Like it's just not that bad. But
Mm-mm.
here, even when the summer gets in, it's summer, you get the hot days, but not as hot.
Mm-mm.
Yeah.
Okay, so today you're gonna I've been binging on your content, by the way. And I was showing my
Oh, thank you.
mom and I was showing my uncles and I was like, guys, look. And they said, oh no, this is very impressive. They're very impressed with your work. I'm very impressed with your work. Actually, I saw your first video a friend of mine had posted where you were explaining about Tobela and she
Oh,
posted it.
yeah.
And that was the first time I actually came across your content. And I was like, oh, no way. What? Who is she? Then I went in and yeah, and then I thought, you know what, you would be the best person to do that. I know heritage is over, but it's like one day after, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah. It's just a day. I just get fascinated when I because I'm okay, I'm a nutritionist by profession, né? So
Okay.
I did not do history a lot in school. But one thing that always fascinates me is when I try, because I started this journey of trying to read about history um,
Mm,
when I started learning about my own grandfather, right? Because I didn't know much about
mm,
him and he was not
mm,
spoken a lot about at home. So that was one thing that led me to starting to read about history because I was like, how come I do not know anything about my own family and my own people? And also when you go because I when I started coming on TikTok, I posted a
mm,
video and somebody just said, go back home. They thought I was from Zimbabwe because I speak VhaVhenda, and a lot of people think,
mm, mm,
there's that thing that VhaVhenda people are from
mm,
Zimbabwe, right? So from there, that's where I started like, okay, let me start reading more about this. And that's where I got fascinated. And with the video that you're talking about, specifically Tobela, I was like, okay, we say Tobela as in the king, the higher king.
mm,
So you will have
mm,
Tobela, and then you will have different kings of different villages. But Tobela, like if
mm,
you know Venda, you will know we have like the Pepu family we have the Tobela from that side, and then we also have the Tobela in Hachibasa, right? So that's the
mm,
king, that's the higher king, and then we have maybe we'd say headman or something like that. The English is not very good, but
mm,
that's where we use the word Tobela, right?
mm,
And when you look at the history of Bavenda people, right,
mm,
you will notice that our history that is well documented starts
mm,
from the Mapungubwe kingdom, right? So
mm,
and again, people will debate whether Mapungubwe is the kingdom of Bavenda or the kingdom of the Shona people or the kingdom of the Basotho or the kingdom. But remember, we were not these tribes that we are today back in the day because the Mapungubwe kingdom comes from People, some scholars say 600 AD, some will talk about 900 AD, some will talk about up to 1200 AD. So when you look at that, we were not really these tribes. The tribe as VhaVhenda, we do not really exist as VhaVhenda. We do not exist as many different tribes that we are today. So you realize that majority of the people that we are today, we are actually descendants from that kingdom of Mapungubwe, right?
Mm,
And we see this by our totems, our clan names,
mm, mm,
our relations with that. So again, when you look at the documented history, the person that ruled Mapungubwe, there's a book called Udibamakrunduvudza by Mr. Rakadani. He actually documents it. It's just that he wrote it in Chivenda. I don't know if he has an English translation, but
mm,
in that book, you
mm.
realize that the first Tobere was the ruler of Mapungubwe, right? It might have
Okay.
been his name, ended up being a title. I'm not very sure
Mm,
exactly how that happened. But when you also look at the ancestral history of the Shona people, maybe let's just say the Karanga people, you also
mm,
find that name Tobera being one of the ancient ancestor, and this ancestor relates between the VhaVhenda and the Shona people. And then you're sitting there and thinking, okay, and then when you look at let me just say Sesotho Saliwa, because I think from that video, that's where I also
mm,
got a lot of comments from people to say it's not the Bapedi, it's this particular clan, it's this particular clan. So again, when you look at the Bapedi people, we have so many clans, or not
mm,
Bapedi, the Sesotho Saliwa community. Then we have
mm,
Bapedi, Bakatla, different, all these different clans, right? So again, you find that there is a Tobere there as well in that
mm,
community. And then
mm,
when you go to the Nguni dialects, right,
mm,
like your Zulu and Xhosa, you find
mm.
them saying Thobela, Uktoba, like
Yes, yes,
to
yes,
obey. And now you see when you look
yes,
at that, you're like, what's going on here? Where does this word come from? What does it mean? What is the story behind the
exactly.
word Thobela? Because even I think in the Sotho Salibwa or the Northern Sotho, you guys will say Thobela as in greeting when you're greeting someone, right?
Yes, yes,
Thobela. So you're just
yes.
like, what's happening here? So it's things that I don't know a lot about them, but when I post them, I want
Mm,
people to start having these conversations to say, no, this is true, this is not true. People engage and you find more information from people, because one thing that I also realize about our history is that it's not very well documented, right? Or
mm,
there is a lot of error in the documentation of our
mm,
history. Yes,
mm,
because majority of our history was not documented by our own people. Like now, when I was preparing for the show, I'm like, let me read a little bit about some of the things, and there was debates about simple things like our traditional attire, because the
mm,
people that documented our history are white people or are Westerners. They come here
mm,
and you tell them this is Shedo, this is Tindi, and then they mix it up. Shedo is for girls in Chivenda and Tindi is for boys. But then someone that is not from the community, because they're not familiar with the culture, they're writing about our history and then they mix it up.
mm,
So the only way to get that information to be clarified is for me to post something, then people comment, and then they're like, no, this is actually our history. This is this clan's history. So yeah. So that's where it all started, and my story of Toyota, I was fascinated as well.
And you know what? Now I'm starting to think because I was raised. Well, my father is Kimopate, so I grew up. So my mom had moved to actually went to school, got TEF and stuff like that. So she stayed there and clearly then started her life there. You see, that's where some of us come from. So, but
Mhm.
living in Limpopo as well, living in Limpopo, you grow up and you're told this is how you greet. You say Tobela. And now I'm thinking, do we know in the Sepedi context what we mean by Tobela? I know it's a greeting, but what does it really mean? I think I'm going back to
Yes.
what you're saying to say in Zulu you can translate it to Mautobile or Utoba, Uzitobela Gwinto. You're like humbling yourself or giving
Humbling
in or
yourself.
yeah, or
Yes.
giving into something or something like that. So I'm wondering now in Sepedi, what do we really mean? And maybe somebody can help us because I'm now thinking, um, I don't think I know.
I actually went on a bit to read about it because, and again, it's not very well documented. People don't really know. I don't know. Maybe some people know. I don't really know exactly
Yeah.
what it means. But I saw someone commented and said the Tobela greeting evolved from the name Tobela, because Tobela again, it
Oh.
was. Yes, so I don't know if that is the truth. Maybe somebody can help
Mm.
us. But it seems someone said it evolved from that. But also we must also remember that our languages they have a common ancestor language, if I can put it that way, or they all evolve from the same language. So sometimes if you cannot find meaning in your own language of something, go and look into another language that is closely related to your language, or that is just a Bantu language. Then you will see that that particular word means something in another language, but because in your language you can't put like a proper meaning to
A
it,
proper
does not
meaning.
mean it does not mean anything. Because if you also you look at our the traditional names, you're gonna like the names of our grandmothers, or even our
Mm.
surnames, right? Our last
Mm-hmm.
names. If you look
Mm.
at it, it might look like it doesn't mean anything, but when you go
Mm.
back and try to figure out where does this name come from which language does it come from which
Mm.
cultural context does it come from, then you realize that it actually has a meaning. I think I did a video a few months ago about the name Mujaji, for example, right?
Mm.
I don't know if you saw that video,
I,
but
and I
and
missed that one.
and how I actually, because I started doing videos on these traditional names, right? Womuafe in Chivenda, Womunjezi and stuff like that.
Mm.
So I was researching the name Munjezi to understand what does it mean, because when you look at it in Chivenda language, you can't really find proper meaning. But when I was reading, I came across this paper where one of these authors actually wrote the name Mujezi and then in bracket Mujaji, right?
Oh.
And I was like, okay, Munjezi Mujaji, how does this relate? But then
Mm.
when you go and read back and go back, you realize in Chivenda, this name is a name that I don't even know how to put it properly without, but if you look at the Bavenda community, you find that there's different clans, right? This
Mm.
name is a name that is there, but mostly you see the first person to be called Munjezi that is documented is from the single clan, right? The single clan, the oral history goes back and Zimbabwe via Zimbabwe, and they will explain that they came from Congo, right? But
Mm.
Munjezi and Mujaji, when they relate, you realize, and when you look at, they appeared also at the same time. Mujaji, the rain queen, when she came to the area that she settled in, and then you're like, and then if you look at Munjezi, Mujaji, what it means, Jaji Kilitazi is the sun.
Mm. Mm.
and
Mm. Mm.
and and you see, and when you
Mm.
look, and then I went to I went to, while I was continuing there, I came across, actually we were on a live when this came about, where
Mm.
somebody said, look at the different moon phases, right? In Chivenda
Mm.
and in Shona, you find
Mm.
that there's a moon phase known as Njedzana, and that J comes from there, and
Mm.
it's a spark
Okay.
of light. But this is from, again, it's not from our languages as we know them today. It's from our languages
Okay.
ancient days and ancient times. So you're sitting
Okay.
there and thinking, oh,
Okay. I think what
Munjeti,
is
Mujaji, Lizati, the
it
sun, the spark,
is
the light.
so it's
But if
the
you look
same
at that
thing.
name, yes, but if you look at that name in the context of Chivenda as we know it today,
Yeah.
it doesn't mean anything.
Oh, I hear you.
You
I
see.
hear you.
Yeah.
Okay, I think that's very interesting. And also, what's interesting is what you say. Like, if you can't, exactly that, if you can't find the meaning in your current language, look next door. Probably
Yes.
that meaning will come through because it's similar. It's just about who was saying what and who was writing what. And another
Yeah.
problem is the spelling. Now, people hear this and that, and then you think words are actually different, whereas it's the same thing. It's like when you're saying mujaji kele jaji, but you wouldn't write Lechachi in Sepedi like that. You wouldn't write it with the
Yes.
TJA. You will, I mean, with a
Yes.
D. With a D, you would write
Yes.
it with a T.
And
And then
and
you wonder,
and you
okay, is
see,
it different words?
and in Chivenda it's NZHE. J.
Okay.
J. Something like, you see the
NZ,
J in Chivenda, it spells different. Then the word completely looks different again.
yes. It's NZ
Yeah.
what?
It's okay. J, it's D actually. So there's J and J. J,
Okay.
it's D. You
Yeah.
wait. Let me bring back my brain. So J, J. Let's do J, right?
Yeah.
Jena.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's D G
Yeah.
G. Let me write it properly.
Yeah. Okay.
Ooh, yeah. You see now, I'm not sure. There is J N Z H E G. Jenna DZHE. I think it's DZHE
HE.
to Z. Yeah, it's DZHE. So there's J and J, like
Nje will
how you
start
say
with an N.
J. Yes, it
Yes.
will start with an N.
N.
Then J will start with a D.
Yes.
Yeah. So
So I
it's
guess where we get ourselves tripped up is we are looking for like to like the words.
yes,
And then
yes,
we expect that they're going to, they mean differently because they look different. But
yes,
I understand what you're saying. It's about who wrote it, who was saying it, what did they really hear, and how did they spell it?
yes,
Because then the
yes,
people were saying it in a specific way, but you hearing your own thing, and then you put your own letters. I mean, it happens even
yes,
now. If you say my surname, people will always put a G after the N. So I always have to say Ngongwani and then spell it. Because then there's different assumptions depending on where you are, who you are, what language you hear. You're going to hear different things. Others will put a Q. We'll put a Q before it will say NQC, or others will put a G. And then you kind of like have to spell it. But that's the thing, it makes it look different. Whereas all of these words are probably the same thing, just written differently.
they are the same. Rahadi, Makadzi.
Yeah.
It's literally the same thing. It's how we write. I think it's because I want to come back to, what do they call them, orthographies,
Mm.
who translated our sounds into letters. I don't even know if how they put it, but whoever did the Chivenda and Sesotho and Setswana and isiZulu, like you see,
Mm.
it's
Mm.
mm, they got us to a point where we don't realize our similarities, because even our languages, a
Mhm.
lot of things are similar. Somebody said to me, Chivenda is so difficult, right? And actually a lot of people would say that the Chivenda language is very difficult. But if you really listen closely, it's very similar to all the other Bantu languages of in the country and even outside the country. I have a folder on my TikTok where I grouped it. I named it Bantu languages, right?
I saw
And
that. I
and
saw you did a lot on that.
yes, and the similarity, and there's still a lot of words that are still coming up. It's just that now I'm very busy. I have a small baby, so it gets a bit hectic.
Yeah,
Because recording a video is something else. I think this is better when you sit and you talk,
it's
but when you have
small.
to record a video, you want to make it like sort of close to perfect, even though you can't be perfect, but you want to make it look good. So it makes it
Yeah,
difficult. But there's a lot of words that are very similar in Bantu languages, and Shivenda being one of the Bantu languages, it's very similar to all the other languages. The words are
yeah.
very similar. It's just that it might be spelled differently, or even the way we pronounce the sounds, they're a little bit different, not exactly the same. So if
Mm,
you're not listening closely,
mm,
you might actually miss a word that you know, thinking that it's something that you don't know.
because of the
Mm.
pronunciation.
Because of the pronunciation, yeah.
And also in some, what can I say, languages, you don't have specific letters of the
Yes.
alphabet. So now when a
Yes,
person says it, the other one does not relate because they've never really used that letter. They don't use that
that
letter.
later.
I know in
Yes.
Sepedi there isn't a lot of R's. I mean Z. Chivenda has a lot of Z as opposed to what you will find in Sepedi. And then in Zulu you will find a lot of X's and Q's, whereas you don't find a lot of Q in Sepedi. So it's kind of like, okay, so you're right. Like
Mm,
whoever translated the sound into letters didn't do justice. They messed us up.
yeah, I think if it would have been better if it was done by one person for all Bantu languages, because then one sound will just be represented by the same letter throughout the different languages, no matter what language you speak. When you say, for example, the word, like I made an example with rakadi and makadzi. You see, is
Mm,
the ka
mm,
is the same, but the
mm,
the 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 Sutu one is written with kg, the Chivenda one is
mm,
written with kh, but it's exactly the
mm,
same sound. It's ka.
mm,
So,
mm,
so when I have
mm.
to read the Susutu one, how am I going to, because that the KG does not exist in Chivenda. So I'm going to think
Exactly.
it's not the same thing, but it's exactly the same thing. It's
The
just
same.
that it's spelled differently in another language. But if it
You,
was spelled exactly the same, it would have made a huge difference.
yeah. Uh-uh. You are spot on. This is very interesting. This is very interesting. Okay, so now, yes. So which now with your, I know you did a lot of videos as well on the same thing, like languages that are similar. So which one do you have you realized maybe is the closest to Chivenda in the other languages? Is there one that where people are always saying, no, we also do that? Because I know in Zambia there's Silodzi, which is so much like Setswana. Because when I went
Mm,
there, I could read Dumelang, whatever. Every it like is Tswana with just a
yeah.
few, you know. So is there one that you realized like Chivenda is very, very almost identical to?
Uh, well, I would say maybe Kilobedu is much, much more closer to Chivenda. But also when you listen to Chivenda, then it's between um Karanga, or what you would call Shona today,
Mm,
and the Sutu dialects. Because for
okay.
example, we would say Koromo and you guys would say Komu, right?
Yes. Yes.
Or let's say there's there's a lot of there's like it's like Chivenda is like it's like just in the middle. It's like it's here and here.
Yeah.
You
Okay.
know, it's like
So between
we have yes,
Shona and Sesotho.
yeah, and yeah, you
Which
would say that
Sesotho? The South Sotho or the North Sotho?
I can't even tell the difference because there's so many similarities. I
Oh,
get confused.
oh,
I really get confused because the Sesotho, so like this, the northern Sotho is well, it's a bit closer, but it's difficult for me to because I can't even tell them
tell the
apart. But I can
difference
understand like I can have a full conversation with a Mosotho, with a Motswana, and you know,
and still
eh,
understand.
and still understand because still a lot of tse dintsi di a tshwana.
Mm, I get you.
Yeah, well,
Okay.
yeah. So I
I
did.
wouldn't have thought
I won't.
Sutu.
Mm?
I wouldn't have thought Sutu was one of them, eh?
It's very similar. There's even it's just that there's even a paper that was done. I don't remember if it was published by the University of Pretoria or which university, where this person literally compared Chivenda with Karanga, or yeah, they
Shona.
actually did Karanga and Sutu, but they did not specify which dialect, but they literally just picked words that make up Chivenda language. So this
Mm,
person actually, even though there's again, it's not being done by this particular research was not being done by an African person or person of African descent or a native speaker of either of the languages, right? They actually on this study said, oh yeah, they said it looks like the VhaVhenda people are related to the Sutus maternally and to the Karangas paternally because
Maternally.
because the words that they share with the Karangas has got to do with hunting and wildlife,
Mm.
things that are done a lot by men culturally and are more associated with the Basutu with maternally because the words that relates to them is words that has got to do with um you know, gender roles basically that we related to the suit with the male with the female gender and the male gender um with the karangas. So it was very funny to actually read, but it was also very interesting. Like I indicated, the word
Yeah.
komu. I know the word komu exists. It's like in komo koromo
Yeah.
in the Zulu dialect.
Mm.
But you also see words like what I'm trying to bring words from the top of my
Yeah.
head
But I
that
get you.
that
I get you.
yeah,
I get you.
yeah,
Oh, okay. No, I must listen to Venda because I mean I speak Spedi very well. If I may say so myself. People can argue with me, but but I also have vendor friends. I actually had a vendor roommate because we were in boarding school. But I don't think, when you're young, you're that curious to learn, to
no,
understand. You just want to find common ground where you can converse and whatever. And whatever language, whether it's English because you're in school or they would speak more of Sepedi, then we would just go on. And then as you grow old, you're kind of like, hi man, why did I miss an opportunity? Because I had a person right close to me, like close to me, who could have. But anyway, I don't think we were very curious, and maybe at that point we would have picked up actually if we learned vendor, because
yeah.
then she would learn Sepeti and she would pick it up quickly. But we didn't maybe try to learn Shivenda, so we can also find ourselves in that language. You know what I mean?
You know, one thing that
So
I've noticed about my people is that wherever we go, it's difficult for you to learn Chivenda from a Chivenda speaker outside of Venda that I've picked up.
yeah,
Because when we get there, our biggest effort is to learn the language than to teach somebody our language. So
yeah.
it's that I have noticed. I have a lot of friends. Like when I first started working, I worked in Nelspruit, right? So they
Mm.
speak Swati. I have a lot of friends there. I don't remember ever like sitting down and I'm like, I'm teaching you guys Chivenda. No, I'm there, I'm learning Siswati. Nyakuluma, I'm done. That was it. So it's very
Yeah,
difficult. But
I
if you
know, but
really, really want to learn from us, go to Venda. I think it's the best. I always tell people that if you want to learn Chivenda, it's better to go to Venda than to invite a Chivenda speaker to your community because they will be making efforts to learn your language than to
your
teach you.
language. But yeah, which
Yeah.
is very true. And I guess it's very versatile of them because they end up learning quite a lot. And at the same
Yeah.
time, we limiting ourselves from that opportunity because we could have been learning. Okay,
Mm.
so teach us to greet, Mama. How do we greet? So I was supposed, how do I greet? I must say, because I'm a lady, I must say right?
Yes.
What am I
You say
responding to?
As far as I have researched the greeting, it was also very interesting because the R in Chivenda, as like I'm saying, as far as I have researched, there's probably maybe something else, but it's actually said to have been a roaring lion.
Okay.
Yeah, so
Okay.
the men when they greet, they say nda, right? But the
Yes.
full greeting for men is actually ndawuyanduna, literally saying
Okay.
amen, lion. You can understand, right? When I say
Okay.
ndawuyanduna.
Yes. 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 Yes, I can.
Yeah. So they say ndawuyanduna, and then we say which is the
Okay.
personification, yes, a personification of a roaring lion. But the men who, when they walk in, like my guy, this reminds me of my late grandfather who would come in and say now every single time he walks in. We know somebody, the only person that would use the full greeting was him. If we hear Ndawyanduna, we know it was him. He would say Ndawyanduna, and you hear my mom responding from far, so
Oh,
the R is there's R to greet, which you say
yes.
ah,
Yes.
ah. And then also when you're responding like as a child, right? when your mom calls you in Chivenda, you don't say hey, you don't say, you get a beating because that's disrespectful. So when an elder calls you, the most respectful way to respond to an elder is to say ah or ah. That's how you will respond. So you would greet by saying ah, but
Yes.
also you will respond by saying ah to elder people or to older people when they're calling you. That's how
Calling
you
you.
respond. Or if you didn't hear properly, like you want to say pardon or something, you just say ah,
Yeah.
they know.
Yeah.
That ah, your
Oh,
ah will then have a question mark to say ah, I didn't hear. Please repeat. They'll repeat.
please.
So yeah.
Okay.
So
So
you as a lady,
do
you
you
say ah.
yes. So do you know specifically why a lion? So Ndawo Yanduna. So why a
I
lion?
I'm not fully sure, like again, because I try
Okay.
to read as much as I can read, right? Like
Yes.
again, as far as I have read what is documented, but now this has been documented by a VhaVhenda speaker, by the VhaVhenda
Yes.
elder again. Um the I think one of the oldest totems amongst our communities was the lion totem. So
Okay.
there's many
Okay.
totems, right? So I
Mm.
think it came from there that
Okay.
we had these relations so with the wildlife,
Mm.
hence our totems, Ditau, Dikwena,
Yes.
Dirukwe, and all of that.
Mm.
But I
Mm.
think it seems like the lion was also one of, it's not the, but it's one of the ancient totems. So if you look at, actually, now that we are talking about it, I'm realizing that a lot of VhaVhenda people actually have, it's either the lion or the elephant totem. Very
Okay.
common. Bomu Dau,
Oh yes.
Badau, they are the people of the lion, so they are the lion
Mm.
totem. And the
Mm.
Badau actually come from different mountains. We will have the
Mm.
Badaoba Kakuma, Badaoba Chihini, Badaoba Gaigai. So they occupy different mountains actually. Now that I'm talking about it is coming to my mind.
Okay. All right. Okay. So now, children greet the same, or is it about age, maybe, or seniority or level, or do we all? So even a small boy would have to say that everybody the same.
Yeah, we all, it's everybody. We say ah and la. That's the general one. So I
Okay.
think it's basically like Dumelang, it's like how are you and all of that.
Yes.
But the
Yes.
the main one, it's the hello is ah or
It's
na.
standards.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Then, then we also see that women, when they respond or when they greet, they lie down. What is that about? And then also, when do they wake up? Because I see some wake up when there's money. Sometimes I'm not sure what happens. so, so maybe how does that one work? Because I also don't see
So
old mothers, I guess, age. They don't do that. So, but anyway, how does that work?
So that is called urosha, right? So
Olocha.
urosha has urosha. So
Yeah,
we have two
that's baby and
ways
I'll
of,
say walocha.
yes,
Yes.
yes.
Okay.
So there's two ways that you can go about it, right? There is urosha on your knees, like you basically kneel down and you put your hands together like this, right? And you say
Yeah.
ah. That is
Mm,
the general way of urosha. That is
mm,
everybody. But then there is that when somebody lies down, right?
mm,
And then on their side, they put their hands like this again and they say, ah,
mm.
that we call it chikororo. Chikororo means royalty.
Okay.
So it's you greeting the royal way. So
Okay.
most of the time, when people greet like that, lying down, right?
Mm,
First, most of the time, I think now people are making it more popular, but it's the way, a royal way of greeting. So you would greet like that mostly at the royal house when you
mm,
greet royalty, right? And
mm,
royalty does not only mean a king, it could also mean
mm,
somebody that you highly respect, right? So you would
mm,
greet them like that. And also people
mm,
from the royal house would also greet like that because that is the royal way of greeting, right? But
mm,
also, that greeting is also a form of communication. So
mm,
in the culture of Bavinda people, right? girls will go
Mm,
through different levels of initiations, right? There's about four
mm,
different initiation schools that girls will go through.
mm,
So when they come back from these initiation schools, one of the things that they are taught is respect. So when they
mm,
greet like that, they are showing you, they are actually telling you. So most of the time when they don't wake up, they are sending you a message. It's either they're coming back from an initiation school, it's either they are telling you that a big event happened in their life, that they got married or they had a child. So if I have a baby and somebody comes to my household, right? The way
mm.
I would greet is like that. I will lie down and I will not wake up until they give me
Okay.
money, because I am telling them something. So even like
Okay.
Womakoti, when they are married, when they just get married, they don't
Eh,
wake up. Umakoti akavuki without
of
imali.
money.
Because
Mm.
yes. So
Yes.
it's a way of communicating, but it's also um it's called chikororo because that's royalty, or that's the way of greeting in a royal way. How you greet the royals and how you greet the elders, people that you highly respect, or even initiation schools leaders, for example. That's how you would greet. Or if you've been working, my mom told me a story when she says when she was growing up, there was one
Mm,
of the kings or the headman of the village that she grew up in, that
mm.
she yeah, you would have to lie down, whether ugezile, you're going to town and whatnot, he would expect you to lie down. So women would walk around with petema or something, because
Oh,
this guy demanded his respect.
no matter
So
where you are.
it doesn't matter. So my mom says we would also run away when we see him, because we
Yeah.
know he's gonna expect us to greet him like that. So yeah, and also in the villages, ne, if
Mm,
if if girls, like I indicated, that there's different initiation schools that girls will go through. If there's girls that went to wusha, we call it wusha or zikomba, or we have the domba, also shikanda. When they come back from those initiation school, or while they are still in the process of ugeza, going to the rivers and whatnot, if you meet them along the way, they lie down, you better borrow money.
yo, oh, you must give each one
You,
of them money.
yes, you must.
So you're gonna hide most. If you see them coming this way, you go another way.
Yes, you must. It's either you run so that you don't
Because
meet
you don't
them. I
have the
wait for them
budget.
to pass. You wait for them to pass, and then you can go.
Oh, okay. All right. So actually you
Yeah.
sending, I didn't know that about the message because I was wondering, okay, so if you're greeting then a member of the royal family or anybody with that seniority, you don't expect money. You can't just get up
Yes,
when
you
you're
can
done
just get out.
greeting.
Yes, yes.
Okay, all
That you are
right.
telling them, you are just greeting them.
Yes. So almost in the
Mm.
vendor homes, there must always be cash.
you,
There must
you see,
there must be a ticky box somewhere.
you must have petty cash, yeah.
You must
But
always have
people,
petty cash.
yeah, people don't do it a lot these days, but I remember growing up that it used to happen like that, right? When I was still a child, I remember I also went to one of the initiation schools, but I did it in church, right? So when you come back,
Mm.
they tell you, abantu, when they come to your household, when you come back from Zikomba and whatnot, you must rosha, your box must be full of money, showing that you are a girl that is very respectful. But if you don't get paid, it means that you are disrespectful. Uzohlala ubroke. So you
Yeah.
would greet and then they give you some money. But a lot of people, because people know what's happening in the community. So a lot of people usually
Yes.
know ukuthi in this,
Yeah.
and it's actually a way, how when you have a small baby, you don't want people just coming to the house, right?
Yes.
Because of,
Yes.
I think now we know because of
Yes.
COVID, right? People have
Yeah.
diseases, people have infections, people have stuff.
Yeah.
So you don't want people
Yeah.
just coming around you
Yes.
as a mom, because
Or a small baby.
yes, so coming across me means that I'm gonna lie down and you're gonna have to pay me. So people are gonna stay away from you.
Yeah, because when you're a money monger at this stage.
Yes, because you're basically protecting your baby, because we don't think about these things, that when you have a small child, right, you don't want to be out there everywhere getting exposed to different things, because babies catch things easily. So
Mm.
yes, so you want to protect your baby, so that is the easiest way to do it.
Okay. Okay, now you got me interested in these four initiation schools now. and you've set
Oh,
them.
okay.
Now I'm worried, like, yo, four, what are they? What are we doing in there?
Okay. So we have for girls, we have four, right? We have Musebeto. So
Mm,
Musebeto is for girls that have not reached puberty, like young
mm,
girls. They basically, and I think it's also girls and boys. Um, and this one is particularly is done by a traditional healer, but it's basically children growing up, playing, also learning how to respect and all of that. I didn't go to one, so I don't know the details of what happens, but it's
okay,
a pre-puberty initiation where
okay,
yeah. And
yeah.
then the second one is wusha, right?
Mm,
Wusha is now when once you see your periods. Once you see your
mm,
periods, this is where they teach you don't play with boys kind of vibes, you know. Um once you've seen your period, you want to learn that you play with boys, you get pregnant and stuff like that. But also they teach them
mm,
respect. So in this stage, when girls come back, this is where they start rushing like that, lying
mm,
on the side, and people paying the money and things like that, because now they're learning to respect the elders and take care of
mm,
of the household in general. So this one I
okay.
did go to, but I went to the church one. Because the apostolic church, if you know the apostolic church in Venda, they do that a lot even to this day. I think some churches still do it. So that's where you learn that. And then from there, we also have it's called Chikanda. This one is
Okay,
a pre-domba dance or pre-domba initiation. So
okay.
I don't know if you know the domba dance. It's the python dance where they dance like this. They have their hands like this.
I
I
saw
don't
it
know if
on
you've seen it.
MuVenda.
Yes, yes, that one.
Yes,
So,
yes.
so the shikanda is like the pre-domba. They prepare you for the domba dance, right? And the domba dance is the final one, which is now saying you are ready to be married. So once you graduate the domba dance, then the boys can start looking,
Oh,
basically.
in all of
Yes.
these stages, you are a virgin in all of these
Yes.
initiations.
Ideally, you should be, because I think they also do virginity testing in the final stage, the final Domba one. But you know, the other interesting thing that I learned, I tried as much to read about the Domba dance. It was very interesting to see that, because these were actually schools. They were not just where you go and play. They were literally schools where, like the Domba one, you even learn childbirth, the entire cycle from pregnancy, how you calculate your
Mm,
periods, your pregnancy. It's
mm,
very detailed. Like I came across this, it was very interesting. They learn agriculture and seed preservation and details. There's one where somebody said they even learned iron smelting back in the day. So
mm.
they literally learned all everything you needed to learn. And one of my grandmothers, when I was asking her about it, she was these schools started to disappear as the Western education came into play, right? Because now girls would go to the Western formal education and then come back to these initiation schools. So then girls would fail in school because now they have to stay up all night in these, because like some of them
Oh,
would be at night, they'll have fire, and they run like the Domba dance would run, I think, for about 3 or 6 months or so. It's a very long period. And yeah,
yo,
so then that's when now they now disappear. I think this I don't know if there's any that is still being done. The last one that I saw was 2004. I don't know if there's anybody else that is still doing that, but they're all done, and the girls are still actually ideally supposed to be virgins. And if you are a virgin, you come back, yeah, you are rich, because
more money.
everybody would know. Yes, everybody would know. We have what we call marengwa,
Oh,
which is the gifts that comes with that. Like,
okay.
you know how they
Oh,
come back, like the Zulu girls, and they come back from theirs
yes.
as well. They have money and sweets and things hanging on their. That's how they come back as well. So that you would have all of
Oh,
those things. Yes. So those are the
actually,
initiation schools that.
I was gonna ask how long they take, eh? But you answered me with the Domba one, 6 months, because I was gonna ask how long are these? Are they over like holiday period, school holidays? But I guess they were initially done because there wasn't much schooling back then. So like you're
Yes.
saying, when the schooling system comes into play, now they are no longer as practical. So I
Yes.
think I was gonna ask to say, were they then reduced or maybe conducted? I know with the Xhosa when they do the initiation for the boys, it's over maybe like December holidays, so that it
Yes.
still gets done, but
They,
within
they
the context of
most,
everything else.
mostly they end up, or they are sort of forced to reduce even the things that they're supposed to do or learn there, because even with the Zikomba one, the one that I indicated that I did went to, right, they, a lot of the time people will do them during school holidays, and
Mm,
also they reduce the things that you are supposed to do, because there's a lot of
yeah.
things that you actually are supposed to learn, because there was no
Mm,
formal education, right? So you're supposed to
exactly.
learn everything there is to know about being a young woman,
So yeah,
and like the Domba one, you literally have to learn everything about being a wife, a mom,
woman.
a contributing member of society in your community, because you have to contribute. You have to learn agriculture, you have to learn how to feed your family, you have to learn how to take care of your
Children.
in-laws, your husband, and you know how culture was back in the day. Even in some communities it's still like that, that if you are a woman, you're expected to do all of these things by
Yes,
yourself, and be a
yes,
mom, and be
yes.
a wife, and be umakoti, and be you
Yeah,
know, and still
yeah.
contribute to the community at the same time. So you had to learn all of those things.
So now, is there similar initiations for the boys?
For the boys, so they them Sebeto one, they would go with the girls, but then we also
Yes.
have them, they all go in Venda or Mula. It's usually done in winter. It's basically the one that comes with circumcision.
Yeah,
So
okay. All right.
this one is, it's still very much intact in Venda, because I still
Yes,
see boys going through that. So they
yes,
go to the mountains and stay there throughout the
yes.
June holidays and stuff like that, and then they
Mm,
come back. When the school opens, usually some of the boys are fully recovered, they're going back with their
mm,
life, and then others might still be, recovering, and maybe take a week or so to recover, and then they go back to school. So this one is specifically done in winter in Venda.
mm. Is it compulsory? Is it like in the community something you feel or the boys feel they must do? Because I know with other um races it's like that. It's like you must go, whether you get circumcised at the hospital. This initiation school is important. Is it similar with the boys, or is it optional? You can go, you may not go. You will still
It's
be a
optional
proper
now.
member of the community.
Mm. It's very much optional. Remember, because now it comes back to what our society has become, because we very much Christianized, right? So these initiation
Yeah,
schools in Venda, they're actually done by traditional healers.
yeah,
So meaning that a lot of people
yeah,
that have moved to the Christian faith may not be comfortable having their children in spaces like that. So it's not
yeah.
compulsory, you decide. But one thing that I've realized with boys, we
Mm,
call it ushabela. Ushabela.
mm,
They go. They, even if the parents did not want them to go, because now other boys will make fun of them. They'll say, "We say
yeah,
shuwuru." They will say nishuwuru. You anongo fumba nishuwuru. You didn't go to the initiation,
yes,
so other boys will not want to play with you. So if a lot of the boys in the community actually went, then chances are your child is going to go by force, and
yeah. Because
yeah,
they're
then you're
afraid
gonna
of
have to.
being, yeah, because they're afraid of being stigmatized and called all these names.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
So they call them shuguru.
I get it. I think it is in most of them. I think I said now I live in Cape Town, so I am learning closely about the Xhosa culture because most of it is there, and I think my boys similarly get that because we from a different place, and then you get there even at school or somewhere, and
Mm,
their belief is different, so they'll be called names or like I because then the Xhosa boys believe you need to go to initiation, and when they come back you must treat them differently, and then you have my sons who are like, what do you mean now, because to me you're still the same, and then there's that. So I see it playing live, but fortunately, because we in the suburbs, I guess it's not that bad
it's not.
as if
Yes.
we were in the rural areas. So
But I noticed the Xhosa boys, they would go, like they are usually big boys, like they literally
yeah,
like 16, 17. In Venda, I
yeah,
think they do, most of them go there very young, like as
yeah.
young as 8, 9, 10. They go. So yeah, so it I think when they're like 16, 17, they also like they know themselves kind of, they can stand the test. But imagine you are like 10 and the other kids are like
Exactly, exactly,
Anongofuba, and then now you're like, yeah. So,
exactly. So polygamy,
mm-hmm.
is it a thing? Because I can tell you, but the belief is that I once you meet, if I'm a lady and I meet a vendor man, I must double, triple check about what's going on back at home because there might be a wife and children that I'm not told about, or that there's an expectation that he may need to take a wife at home, you know?
Mm.
So, what's the story there?
Oh, that's a tough one, But maybe first, but polygamy is very common in amongst the VhaVhenda community. But I think today, like many other people from different communities, they are trying to do away with polygamy. But my grandfather had polygamy. He had 3 wives. My father didn't have his table, like he just married 3 times.
Okay, okay, okay.
And my father-in-law and I also had East Tembu. I think a lot of older men, I know for a
Yeah,
fact that East Tembu was the thing back in the day, right? But
yeah,
also, if maybe we can go back a little bit, right, before we look into today's generation, right?
yeah.
Um, a lot of the times, our mothers would be left at home, and when our
Yes,
fathers go to Joburg to work, they will find somebody else. So
yes, yes.
if I were to put it on my father's generation and maybe a few generations,
Can you hear me, Kay? Yes.
can
Can
you
you hear
still
me now?
hear me?
Yeah, yeah, you're
Yes,
back. Yes.
yes. Okay, so I was still saying that if you look at the older generation, like a lot of the time, example, my father, he left my mom at home. He was working in Joburg. So he had a wife at home and kids, an entire family. And he goes to Joburg and then he finds somebody else, right? So that was a very, very common. And I think
Mm.
if for me, I wouldn't want my husband to leave me in the village because I know for a fact that he's gonna find somebody else there. So a lot of the times, chances are there's somebody at home, especially when somebody has kids. You're not really sure if they've broken up with the one that is at home. But the generation of today, I think people are sort of doing things differently. They take their wives with when they go to work
To
in
the
the cities,
town.
right?
Yeah.
Yes, but that that has been, but there's still people that do that, that they would leave their wives at home. Like people as young as us would leave their
Mm.
wives at home and take care of the house in Venda, because most of the time our people would have like an entire house in the village, and then they work
Mm.
in Gauteng, right? So
Mm.
checking, I wouldn't say you shouldn't do it. You should make sure. And
Mm.
sometimes some families, you see, again, maybe let's come back to that the term mukada, right? Which is
Mm.
one of the words that people would use, like they will call you mukada, and mukada,
Yeah, yeah.
meaning that she's a woman from a different tribe, right? So back in the day,
Mm.
like I was giving an example with my father. They would leave their wives at home. They go to Gauteng. They find mostly Sotho Tswana women,
Mm.
there, and then you see. So there's also that. our grandmothers, I would say, some of them still has that mentality that you cannot be a good wife if you come from
Mm.
a different tribe, because one, you don't know about our culture, two, you know, you took him from somebody else, kind of. And
Yeah.
some of them
Or
is
you're
also
not
because their
trained.
husband, yeah,
Or you're not trained to take care of him like we have trained our girls through these initiation schools to take care of
yes,
him.
yes. So in some families, if you are not from Venda, they might have a certain expectation that they want him to take a wife that is from the culture. But I think it's older people, that generation is going, because now I see, there's, I think the generation that we are today is a little bit different, and people are getting more and more educated, and we're learning about each other like we're doing now, right? That for me, you don't become a good person by being a specific clan or a specific tribe or coming from a specific area. If you're a good person, you're a good person, irrespective of where you actually come from. So,
Mm,
but that generation, I think people are moving on, but there's still those
mm,
cases where people would expect, he must get a vendor wife, don't marry
mm,
people outside of your tribe. You know,
mm.
the last week, this other guy said, yo, you guys love each other. You marry amongst each other. You don't marry
Yeah.
out. But I'm like, guys, we are these days. Like, I mean, every household has a Makoti from Eastern Cape,
Somewhere.
KZN, from
Yeah.
Polokwane, from Zanini and stuff like that. So I think people are moving towards, what is the right word? Yeah, but marrying anyway, irrespective of whether you are Venda, you're from this culture, or you're from this culture.
But then how easy is it then for that Makoti to be received? And do people, then the family, put in an effort to at least teach them um, their culture, or how maybe they, obviously they can't take them through everything, but is it something
Mm.
that our Makoti struggle with to say, how do I then, am I received? Because I'm not Venda, but I'm here.
Mhm.
And I love your son. And I love you guys too.
You must just first learn how to cook pap the Chivenda way, then you're fine.
Yo, don't tell me
Because
about that
one
one.
thing,
I was married to Botswana, and they eat ding.
Mhm,
Now that was the first time I was exposed to it. I was like, oh, and you can
mhm.
see every day is like, if you cook anything else besides ding, it's like, oh, the house, they're like, oh, thanks, but like, uh
Ting is the fermented one.
yes.
And then you make that mistake of forgetting to ferment, and then the next day there's no fermented pulp.
No, no, worst of all, I wasn't even interested because I didn't eat it. So to me, it was like, no, I don't want to. I had an attitude, and then I would like just make and say, "Can I make pap?" And then, but you can see in their faces that, we actually wished you could have cooked a different one. But
Yeah,
I get you with the pap
yeah,
thing. It's very important.
yeah. I think I think it's again, your attitude is very important. How
Yeah.
you get there. I know that you might, because it's a two-way street, right? You might get to a family where people are just they don't care who you are. They, before they even see you, they've already made up their minds. There's nothing you can do about that. But then sometimes you find, again, it's not them, it's you that is with that mentality. I don't care about them. I'm there for my man, then you're going to have a problem. But a lot of families make it work. I remember one of my uncles was married to a Musutu woman. That woman, I could never match her. Yo, yeah, she was always standing. I'm like, I don't know if you want to win something, but yeah, you know
Yeah.
what you're doing. She's always
Yeah.
standing, she's always cleaning and doing everything, and she, in that regard, from the way I see her, there was no way that you could say she does not qualify to be a
Mm,
Makoti, and she was
mm,
prepared to learn anything. Because the other thing that a lot of people also do is making it look like they come from better backgrounds or better
Yeah.
cultures or better whatever.
Yeah.
They just have that attitude of I come from a better background. So you can't expect,
Yeah.
like you're saying, that I had an attitude. I was like, I didn't want to cook that thing. Now you're gonna
Yeah.
have a problem because how do we teach you because you're not even interested, you know? And you know one thing for a fact, our men love pap. So if you don't know
Yeah.
how to cook pap and you are not prepared to cook it almost every day, you might
Yeah.
actually have a problem because
Oh,
breakfast, lunch, dinner,
yeah.
and don't complain about buying a 12.5 bag of maize meal because pap is going to be the everyday thing. So you don't buy a 5 kg of maize meal
Yeah, yeah. No,
in
it's
our
true what you're
household, you
saying.
know?
Yeah, it's true what you're
Yeah.
saying. It's about also how you come in. If you're ready to learn and you're ready to integrate, or if you come with an
Mm,
attitude to say, I'm visiting here, we are leaving, we're going to our house. So, and which
yeah.
applies everywhere, everywhere. I think also with me, when I gave in into some processes, they became easier in my marriage to say, now I've given
Mm,
myself into them to learn, to understand whether it was the language, because I also speak good Setswana, I think. Yes, I speak good
mm,
Setswana. So at least learning, understanding what do you mean by that word? What does it say? And using it and trying. Then I get
mm.
it wrong. Once you give in, then the process is easier. But you're right, the resistance makes it difficult both ways. You can't be
It
taught
does.
and you also can't learn.
Yes,
So
and the other thing that you want to keep in mind, ne, is that it might actually happen to you even if you are from the same culture.
yeah,
You know,
correct.
when you go to your in-laws, don't go there. They're gonna accept me because they are vendor and I'm vendor. Sometimes that is not even gonna fly because remember we also come from different families. We also come from even if we come from the same clan or what you would call a tribe or whatever. We have different ways of doing things. Like
Yeah.
I think you would see if you look at the vendor TikTok that Bazana Banjerere, as in girls from Jerere. There is a
Yeah.
certain area in Venda. People
Yeah.
have stereotypes about people from that particular area. So you might be coming from Jerere and being married Hachibasa, and people are like giving you hard time simply because you come from a different side of Venda.
Yeah.
And again,
Yeah.
in our languages, we also have dialects within the
Yeah.
Chivenda language. So you might speak a different dialect again. So it's
Correct. You're right. You're right. You're right.
yeah.
Ah,
So
I
yeah,
get you, Kay. I
it's
know
just
I've taken
hard.
already an hour, and I know you have a small baby in your arms. I don't want to continue, but I think we need another we can talk because I think this has been very interesting, and not only about Chivenda, but just how I see um culture and tradition and language and how we relate to one another. That I have a different view now, with everything that we've spoken about.
Mm,
And it makes it also easy to know that you belong everywhere. It doesn't matter where. It's just
yes,
about accepting one another, that you are no different. We're just the same. Somebody, you may speak a different language, but actually, we are from the same ancestral background. And we may
yes,
not be speaking exactly the same thing, but we mean the same thing. And if we look deeper into what you're saying, you're probably saying the same words, things like
yes.
that. So I
Yeah.
think for me, that has been very enlightening. Um, Thank you very much again. You are excellent. And keep up the good work that you're doing on
Thank you
TikTok.
so much.
Yeah. And do more, do more. Please don't get lazy and get tired.
Ooh, babies, ne?
I
Babies.
know.
You.
I
They're
know,
like
I know,
this
I know. When you
small.
when you find time, just throw one, and we will participate. You
I
know.
have so many ideas that I want to do. I just have not had the time to sit down and actually do the videos, but they are coming and hopefully I will work on my YouTube channel because I also have a YouTube channel, but I have not been working on it. I've been yeah, maybe I'm just
Yeah.
lazy.
Maybe it's an
Yeah.
idea because it's easier when you speak, even if you're on your own. It's also sometimes
Mm,
easier when you speak it than maybe trying to capture it. But Anyway, whichever way, but thank you so much. We are going to need to talk again. I don't know when, and then you're going to teach us more. But thanks so
Okay,
much for
thank you so
today.
much. Thank you
Yes,
so
kiss the
much for
babies.
having
Kiss the
me.
babies.
I will do that.
Yeah.
All right. All
All
right.
right. Okay, bye.
Bye. Ah.